Alright, so now that we have our UI done for the image uploader, now we're going to move on to adding the dynamic functionality. Basically, there's two things we need to do. We need to create our main JavaScript file, which will interact with the Filedrop plugin for JQuery, and then we need to create the PHP file, which will do the actual uploading and moving of the file. Alright, so let's do the JavaScript first. So if we go to our file structure and go to JS and then main.js. Alright, so we're going to be using JQuery. Alright, so we're going to say in here, put a callback function, and then everything's going to be done from in here. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is define our main div. Alright, so let's take a look at the HTML. Alright, so you can see that this pick box div, this is going to be the main, I guess, the pick box where we're going to drag and drop the images. Okay, so basically this area. Alright, so let's go back to the JavaScript, and we just want to define that. We're going to create a variable called pickbox, and we're going to set that to the ID pickbox using jQuery. Alright, and we're also going to create a variable called back, and we're going to set that to the class back, so dot back, and then we want to add in our pickbox variable. Now what this back, we can see that we have the back as the class for our span, and inside that span we have our image, which basically just has this camera and then a drag and drop image. Now the reason we're using this variable is because when there's a message or when we upload our images, we want this to disappear. Okay, so we just want to see our preview, our image previews, not the background image. So that's why I'm doing this. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the Filedrop API. Okay, so we're going to take our pickbox variable or object and say dot Filedrop. Alright, now inside of here, I'm going to open up some curly braces, and what we're going to do is set some options. Alright, so the first one we're going to call param name. Okay, so basically this is going to be the name of the file in the files array. Alright, so when we post to our PHP file, it's going to be uploaded inside of a files array, which looks like this. Okay, so it's basically a PHP super global. So the name of the file we're going to use is going to be pick. Alright, so we're going to set that. Okay, so comma, and the next one we're going to say is max file size. Alright, and the max file size we're going to set to 2 megabytes. And then we want to set the max amount of files. So we'll say max files, and max files will say 6. Alright, now we want the URL. Okay, so this URL is going to be our PHP file, and it's going to be called upload.php. Okay. Next, we want to create a finished function. All right, so we're going to say upload finished. Okay, so this is going to be a function. Alright, so in here we want to put in file and our response. Alright, so the response is going to be the JSON object that upload.php is going to return. Alright, so right here we're going to say data, pass in the file, and then add class. we're going to add class done. Alright, and then down here we're going to say error function. Alright, so this is basically our error handler. Alright, so we're going to use a switch statement here to switch through the different possible errors. Alright, so the first one, we're going to say case, and this is going to be called browser not supported. So basically this is going to happen if you're using maybe an older browser that doesn't support the Filedrop plugin as well as HTML5 drag and drop functionality. Alright, so you want both of those things. Yeah, and all the modern browsers, the latest version, I believe, support everything that we need. But if it doesn't, we're going to say show message. Okay, so show message. Your browser does not support HTML5 file uploads. Okay. Next, oh, we need to break this. We need to put a break after all of our conditions. Alright, so the next one is going to be too many files. So that's going to be if we try to upload more than what we put here, which is 6. Okay, so let's see. Actually, you know what? This should be a colon or a semicolon. And we're just going to send an alert. And the alert, we'll just say you and over the max number of files. Okay, then we're going to break. I should actually indent these. Alright, so the next one's going to be file too large. Alright, so this is going to be if, in this case, if they tried to upload more than 2 megabytes, then it's going to be too large. And we're just going to set an alert. And we can actually access the file name. Okay, so we can say file.name. And we'll concatenate a message. We'll say it's too big. And please upload a smaller image. And then, of course, we need to set a default. Alright, so the default we're just going to break. Alright, so basically if none of these are an issue, then we're just going to do nothing. Okay, so that's the error handler. And go down here, comma. Alright, so what we're going to do here is create a function that's going to be called before each upload starts. Alright, so say before each and we're going to pass the file into this function. And what we're going to do here is make sure that the file that they upload is an image. Alright, so I'll say if not file.type.match, and in here we're going to use a regular expression to just make sure it's an image. Let's see, we want to match the word image. And if you don't know what a regular expression is, it's basically just filtering out, making sure that it's a certain naming convention. I'd really suggest that you look up JavaScript regular expressions. Okay, so if it's not an image, then we're going to alert, and we'll just say your file is not an image. Okay, and then we're going to return false. Okay, so the next function is going to be called upload start, and basically we're going to pass in file and length. Alright, so what this is going to do is just call another function. It's going to call the create image function, which will take the file as a parameter, and that's it. So next we want progress updated. Let's put a comma here. File, and this is going to take a progress parameter, and then here we're going to say data file dot find. Okay, so we're looking for the progress class, which is going to be generated with our JavaScript. We'll create that in a minute, and we're going to say dot width, and then we're going to put in our progress variable. So that's basically it for the Filedrop API. Alright, so now we want to break out of that, and we're going to create our template markup. Alright, and we're going to store it all inside of a variable called template. And basically this is going to include, when we created our CSS, we have, for instance, the preview class we styled, image holder uploaded, and you can see that we don't have any of those classes in our HTML. We're going to create a variable with that markup. Okay, so for template, I'm going to say div class, and I'm going to set this to preview. And let's see, we'll just go line by line, and we'll just concatenate each line with a plus symbol. Alright, and then we're going to have a span with the class name. Actually, we need our quotes, single quotes here. So a span with the class name of image holder. Okay. So for the next line, we're just going to put an empty image tag here because it's going to be filled dynamically. Okay, so let's indent that. Go to the next line. The next line is going to be our closing span tag. And I just want to line these up correctly. Alright, so after the closing span tag, we're going to add another div and call it progress holder, which will basically hold our progress bar. Alright, oops, I forgot a less than for div. Alright, and then inside of here we're going to create another div with the class of progress. And we're also going to include the closing div as well. Okay, let's close this. And one more. Alright, so that's good. Alright, so that's where all that markup is going to come from. Now, underneath that, underneath our template variable, we're going to create the createImage function. And that's going to take our file as a parameter. And actually we have to say function. Alright, so let's initialize a variable called preview, and that's going to be set to the template. Alright, now we want another variable called image, which will be set image and then preview. Now the purpose of this createImage basically is to get a data URL of the image and then add it as the source of the image. Okay, so of this right here, this blank image holder. Alright, so we're going to use the file reader API for that. So we need to create another variable, and we're just going to call this reader and set it to new file reader. Okay, so we're going to use the file reader API. We're going to set some options. We're going to say image.width, and for now we'll just set this to 100, and then image.height set to 100 as well. And then we can use that reader object. Okay, we'll say reader.onload equals function. Pass in an event parameter. So basically we're going to dynamically add the source for the image. So image dot attribute, and the attribute that we want to add is the source, so src, and then for the data URL we can use e.target.result. Okay, so that'll be the data URL that we pass in. And then reader dot read as data URL. Pass in the file. So this is gonna read the data as URL, and when this is finished, it's gonna trigger the onload function. Okay, which is right here, which will create the source. And then what we want to do is we're going to say back.hide. Okay, so we're doing this because when we upload an image, we don't want this drag and drop and camera icon. We don't want that to show because that'll look all just messed up. And this should actually be a K. Okay, so we'll hide that, and then we're going to say preview dot append to pickbox. All right, so we're going to add it to that pickbox div, and we're going to use jQuery's data function to associate a preview the preview container with the file. So data, and we're going to pass in file and preview. Alright, so that's it for the create image function. Now we have one more small function, and that's just to show a message. So show message, and this is just gonna, we'll say message. Actually, we want to say back, because that's the ID, that's the class we've used up here, is back. So back.html, and we'll just fill it with a message. Alright, so that's it for the JavaScript. Not too bad. We most likely will have to do some debugging, so let's save it and just see what happens. Alright, so we're getting this unexpected token error on line 16, which is Alright, so it looks like I put this colon here and it's not supposed to be. So let's get rid of these. Alright, the default is supposed to be there. Alright, so let's save that. Stupid mistake. Okay, so that seems to be fixed, but now we're getting this undefined is not a function on line 5. Okay, so the actual API, pickbox.filedrop. Let's make sure that it's reading the actual filedrop JavaScript file. So if we go to source and then click on filedrop, seems to be okay. Alright guys, so I paused the video and was looking for an issue inside our JavaScript file, and it's not there. There's nothing that I can tell is wrong, so I went and looked at our structure, and I looked at, let me just open it up. We'll go to htdocs, dd uploader, and this filedrop file is actually the wrong file. Okay, so if I open this up, you can see that it says HTML5 and legacy file upload. This just is not the right file. So what we need to do is get the right one. Alright, so if we search for JQuery Filedrop, now the first one that pops up is actually the GitHub repository, so we're going to get that, click on that, and we want this jQuery.filedrop.js. So let's actually download the zip. Alright, so we want this file here, so let's just copy that and bring it to our structure. Alright, and I'm going to delete this filedrop.js. Alright, now let's go into our index file and just change this to jQuery.filedrop. Alright, so let's try this again. Actually, I'll leave that open just to see if we get any errors. Reload. No errors. Now this isn't going to go to the folder. This isn't going to upload to our folder yet. So let's just see what happens. Alright, so you can see that it did actually get put into the box. Nothing's happening because we don't have our PHP set up. Let me actually see. Alright, yeah, so that's fine. Alright, array buffer is depreciated. Alright, so it looks fine up to this point. Obviously we can't test it fully until we do the PHP, so we will get into that in the next video.